I'm here with Susan Stautberg, who's the grand niece of Edward Berwind, who has direct family ties to the Elms, the beautiful house where we are today. And we're going to walk through and you're going to share some stories with me and tell me about your family.
Sounds great.
Let's do it. When did you become involved in the preservation and restoration of this house?
About 40 years ago when I moved to Newport for the summers. And at that point, the gardens were all destroyed. They'd been destroyed by vandals, back around the period of World War II. So there were no sunken gardens, there were no statues, all the fountains were destroyed. We had to raise the money to restore those fountains. We had to raise the money to restore the sunken gardens and then work on the rest of the house.
Susan, one of my favorite rooms in this entire house, the conservatory. Tell me about how the Berwind family spent their time here and if you have any stories about what happened here when the parties weren't happening.
Well, this was a place that Julia Berwind used to love to play cards, and she had her own drink concocted, a Berwinds or gin fizz. She always wanted cards because she never put any gin in her drink, just put gin in all her guest drinks, so she always won. This dining room is interesting because some of these paintings were gone, and we got them back. And this is another example of people working together with us.
Wait, what existed in these spaces where these beautiful paintings exist right now? Were they blank?
The paintings were taken down to New York to be sold and sat in a warehouse for years and were never sold. So what I did is organize the Elms committee to come up with some funds, and we made a pitch to the firm in New York that you're never going to get the amount of money you want. We're only going to pay you pennies a dollar, but you get some money and you get them out of your warehouse. So we got the paintings back. This room is very interesting, and this is one of the few rooms in America that still exists with this beautiful sort of wood carvings. The problem was that because of the humidity in Newport, about 10 years ago, these panels were all splitting. So we took them down one at a time, took them down to the basement, and worked on them and recreated them, put them back together again so that they are here and be able to be enjoyed.
So Susan, the family's been involved obviously since day one at this house. Are there still family traditions that happened then, that happen now?
There's certainly traditions that happened growing up. My grandfather had gone to Annapolis as his uncle had, and so he had great traditions of what he thought was important. So for instance, on Christmas Eve every year, we would go have a wonderful Christmas dinner, but then he would line us all up, even our mothers and fathers, and he would say, where on the Christmas tree he wanted each ornament to go. Then he went to the back of the line and got another ornament. The next person was told where to march, where to put the ornament, march back. He loved being in command. Had a big house outside Philadelphia and a huge model train in the basement, which had Berwind and white coal cars all over. It was always for fun. But I had birthday parties, and I was allowed to have ice cream and cake, but we weren't allowed to touch the trains. My grandfather ran the trains.
So Chateau-sur-Mer is a property that's close by, was built to overlook the ocean, Chateau-sur-Mer. Why wasn't the Elms built to overlook the ocean? Why is it facing west?
I think Edward Berwind liked the action of harbors. You could also get a better buy for your dollar overlooking a harbor than looking out straight out of the ocean, and you got more land for the buck.
Right, and is that the Navy man in him? Right, he wanted to see, he was a man of action in general because really this is the house of ambition. He was a self-made man, and it seemed like that drive was unstoppable.
It's the house of innovation, and he liked being able to innovate and having more land to innovate. And he first built the house, and then later he built the gardens, and later he built the carriage house and the stables. So it was constantly, what was he going to design to do next? So he didn't want to just come to Newport on summer weekends and party. He wanted to come to Newport and be building something and growing something and building more and more innovation.
Susan, one of my favorite features of the Elms is this incredible garden. What was the genesis of this beautiful sunken garden?
Well, Mrs. Berwind had grown up in Europe and had spent all of her early years in Italy looking at gardens and studying the history. And so there certainly was a passion there. There is a admiration for beauty wherever it may be.
I think back to the movies where they're in the barracks, the army's in the barracks, and the corporal or whoever comes in and they're looking to make sure that the beds are just perfect and neat. And then I think about how the Elms was designed, that it was made to look very tidy, and there was no evidence of where the servants lived and where the deliveries happened. Do you think that was born from his time in the Navy, just to keep things neat and, for lack of a better description, ship-shape?
Yes, and also very, very disciplined and different. Have you ever been over to sort of see the Royal Britannia? It's a dock
Yes.
down. One of the most wonderful things when you go through that ship is seeing there's like 11 different bars. There was a bar just where the admiral could go. There was a bar where the key officers could go. It goes all the way served down to what was served and how big it was and whatever. I mean, the discipline is amazing.
Yeah. So tell me about E.J. was such a family man, right? His time in the Navy, loyalty was such a big part of his persona. Can you speak at all? What was life like here when it was just E.J. and Hermione?
Well, they loved having relatives around, and so they had nieces and nephews and come and visit. Because remember, this house is only used for 100 days a year,
Right.
so it was just such a short season. And so you would come and try to sort of share it with family and friends.
So E.J. was such a force in so many ways. How did Hermione balance that? Did she complement it? Did she balance him out? Was she sort of a stabilizing force in his life, or was she more fuel?
She actually did a lot of the work of organizing a house like this. When you had to have, parties every few days, when you had to arrange for all the house guests coming and going. Her bedroom is bigger than his, because she would have staff meetings there in the morning and going over all the flowers that had to be organized, and the meals had to be organized, and the men would come up Thursday nights by train or boat and spend the weekend and go back to New York while the women were here, making it all work.
Right. So Susan, I was asking earlier, what are some anecdotes and stories that you could share with us? And I know that this fountain in particular, you've got a pretty amusing story about what's happening over here.
Yes, this fountain had been turned off and destroyed for 30 or 40 years. When we fixed it up, we had some wonderful stories of prominent Newporters who
will remain nameless.
Very prominent, and actually some of the people that brought the family back and brought the house back, it helped fund it. And they used to love to park outside on the street, and the water here is an erotic sort of scene of women with the water coming out of their nipples. And they would love to park here. It was sort of the place to sort of be.
And are they making out in their cars, or what's happening?
Making out in their cars. And so I discovered this when we brought the Elms back, and we had the centennial, and these older women came up to me and say, "So wonderful, the fountain's back on. I haven't seen it since my early days of dating." And they all were so excited to have the fountain come back.
So Susan, when we walk up this beautiful lawn and you're looking at this house today, and you think back to how it was, how different is it today compared to the way it was?
Well, most of the destruction was with the sunken gardens and the fountains. The houses needed work, and the statues needed to be cleaned up. Some of them were in parts of disrepair, so we just took it one project at a time. You try to figure out who in town was interested in which thing, and
Right.
PS would team up with the Berwind family and team up with other people we could raise money from, just sort of always try to split the cost, but make it work.
And a lot of work has been done recently,
Yes.
including these beautiful windows, and I think some of the statuaries.
Just in 2 years alone, the Preservation Society has raised and spent over $2 million to bring back the fountains in the greenhouse room, to fix paintings that were falling apart over the stairs, and then so many things that may not just appear from the first moment, but all the windows had to be redone, a lot of the steps were needed to be graded. Just so much work comes from having a house that's over 100 years old.
Susan, thanks so much for taking me through.
Well, great to be with you.
What's it like walking through the house, knowing that your family is responsible for one of Newport's greatest treasures?
Well, it's always a thrill to sort of see the house, and always a challenge because you see what else needs to get done and fixed.
Right, and you've got one of your favorite quotes with you.
I do. It's a Churchill quote, and one our families live by. We make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give.
And you and your family have given so much, and you personally have given so much to the restoration and preservation of this beautiful home. So thank you so much again for your time.
Thank you.
It was great to see you again.